All right, so I'm Aime Rodriguez. That's how I kind of say my name on camera. I do it purposely because I grew up, I'm Cuban, so I grew up hearing the name Rodriguez, and that's how I identify myself. And I also want to do it purposely in a way that I want to tell my audience that I speak Spanish, I am bilingual, and I'm Latina, and I can relate to them in that sense. I was here, I did my bachelor's degree here, and I then did the master's program. So how many of you guys want to go into TV news? Okay. What do you want to do? Anchor, report? How many of you guys want to be anchors? Any reporters? Photographers? Producers? There's all types of things. I started my journey with news as an intern at News 12 Westchester. It was my second internship. And then that led to networking, which I know Lesque and everyone's here is going to tell you, till you're blue in the face, you have to network. It does work. Someone told me, hey, you know, News 12 Bronx, Brooklyn kind of gets people right out of school. They are not that, they've been around for like 10, 15 years. So they get more the greener people. And they told me, try to apply there. And I applied, and I didn't know what I wanted to do. I said, oh, I kind of want to do everything. I want to try everything. I just want to know everything. So they told me, oh, why don't you work in our assignment desk? So not a lot of people know what assignment desk editors do. Assignment desk editors pretty much find the news, get the news, give the news, do the pre-interviews, do all the dirty work for the reporter, hand it off to them, the reporter puts her face on it, and then you don't get anything out of it. I did that for about 3 years, got really frustrated seeing reporters kind of do my work and saying, well, I could have done that better. And after 3 years of trying to prove myself, I finally got the opportunity to be a reporter. Not knowing that for a lot of you guys thinking it's very glamorous, you're going to be on TV, it's not as glamorous as people think. I actually, after working 3 years behind the scenes, I left my full-time job to be a freelance reporter and learned that being on camera pays a lot less than being behind the scenes. So a lot of people don't know that. There's also a lot of expenses that go into it. Wardrobe, you have to pay it for yourself. Makeup, hair, and depending on what news director you have, you could have a news director that tells you, well, your hair's too long, you have to cut it. My hair was up to here, and I had to cut it. And I have a wedding coming up, so I wasn't very thrilled, but it's part of the job. Your look does matter. It's very vain, so in that scenario, you have to try to prove yourself not only as talent, but trying to look good too, because people do see you, and unfortunately, you don't want to see a slob on TV. You'll turn off the channel. So a little bit about what I do now. I am a one-man band or multimedia journalist. It's the new thing now. You basically do it all. So I shoot my stories, I edit my stories, sometimes I find my own stories, and then in a very short time frame, while driving a car, have to think, okay, this is how I'm going to edit and put this together when I go back to the station and cut my story to air, sometimes in less than 45 minutes. So it's constant, it moves quickly, my day moves by very fast. At the same time, I'm outside most of the time, rain, snow, or shine. On days like this, it's beautiful to be outside. I've had days that, you know, the beach is my office. People don't have that. That's the nice side about the job. You're out in the community, you're getting to tell people stories, you meet all kinds of people, and people are very grateful, they're very thankful. And you kind of get to tell their stories and make a difference in their lives. And you meet so many people. So one of the things that I would say is, from my experience, you know, internships kind of made my career because I interned at News 12 and that opened those doors. My first internship was at Univision because I am Hispanic and I wanted to get into that. I ran into the whole union issue. In New Jersey, there's heavy, very strict unions. You couldn't do anything. I couldn't touch a camera, I couldn't touch a light. And I also was still figuring out what I wanted to do. I was very awkward, getting out of high school into college, I was kind of timid. I didn't want to talk. You can ask Sager, talking in front of people like I'm doing right now was my worst nightmare. I'm doing it now a little better because I have a camera on, so I'm used to the camera. But I found that my first internship, I didn't do the best I could have done. I was kind of timid. I laid back, and I just went with the flow. They told me to do something, I did it. I didn't ask questions. I didn't try to learn more, and I didn't put myself in a position where they could tell me, hey, why don't you come and get a job here at some point after school. Now that I've worked with interns, I see the other side of it. I see the interns that I have made an impact on me, and I even have friended them on Facebook, and I've told them, when you're ready after college, call me, we'll find you a job. Because they're that good, because they're that committed and they want to learn. If I could go back, I would be one of those interns. So that would be my advice to you guys looking for internships, because your internships can make your jobs. Networking can make your job. Right now I have, I'm pretty much starting my career, but I have connections from networking with WCBS, WABC. I have friends that work at WCBS, WABC. That's the #1 station and the #1 market in New York. That's where most people want to be. And most people, it takes them a very long time to get there. So it's all about who you know. At the same time, I know people in Florida. Liskay told me to mention this. My brother is a meteorologist in Telemundo 51. It's located in Miami, Florida. That's where I'm from. So his journey is a little different. He worked in Dallas, Texas for 10 years. Now he's finally back home. In that sense, you'll find that a lot of people go to small markets, and small markets then takes you to the bigger markets. That's the easiest way to get into this business. Now, that's not really the case. The internet has changed this market. So I know people working in yahoo.com, working in Buzz 60. That's a huge thing now. And that's based out of New York City. So you could work in New York City and have those New York City markets because you're working online. So it's really what you make of it, and again, just networking. And a lot of the things that your professors do tell you do make a difference. I know one of the things that stick out to me is Duraria always told me to carry a Sharpie. I have a Sharpie in my bag right now. And they always told me business cards, business cards, business cards. My business cards are not updated, but I have business cards for each one of you if you guys want them, because I took a stack this big. So it really does make a difference. And when I'm out in the field and I meet strangers, they tell me, oh, I have a great story for you. Can you give me your business card? And I have to rush and say, yes, here you go. And they'll call me, and then I will be that much more of an asset to my news director because I have the story that no other reporter has. And it's really, you have to make yourself an asset, and you have to make yourself stand out. Some people go straight into TV and on camera, on the on-camera side. It took me a little longer. I don't regret doing the assignment desk because I learned so much more. I learned how to develop a story. I learned how to talk to people and interview people over the phone. So now that I'm out in the field, I use those, experiences that I had. If you're a producer, same thing. So if you ever get a job starting off and it's not on camera and you're like, well, that's not what I want to do, my suggestion is don't turn it away, because if there's growth, you could always try to grow wherever you are. And you learn from your experience. And your idea first, maybe I want to be on camera, but you may find that you like to be a producer more. So I don't know if there's anything else that you guys have any questions or anything for me. Go ahead.
What would be your advice for students who are graduating in May? Because I'm one of them.
Okay.
Do you give any advice?
So you're graduating May, and what do you want to do?
I want to be a news anchor. Sorry.
Okay. So one of the things for those that want to be a news anchor, not to discourage any of you, you're not going to be a news anchor your first day on the job. Even if you could be in the best college program in the world. You have to start from the bottom, like the Drake song, started from the bottom, now you're here. You have to start doing reporting. So your first job is going to be most likely reporting, whether it's reporting with a photographer or reporting like I am doing MMJ. I would say you really should use the new direction of this business is multimedia journalism. They want to cut jobs because they're not making a lot of money. So they want to cut job, and if you could do the job of 3 people, you're an asset to them. So what helped me is that when I was in this program, we really didn't have an anchoring class. We didn't have all those things, but I had TV production, and I learned how to shoot, I learned how to edit, and those basic skills are going to help you. If you know how to white balance, if you know how to, focus, all those things, those are things that I do in my daily job. Editing, whether it's, Avid, Final Cut, which one, there's another, Premiere is big now too. A lot of stations are using Premiere. So I would say is you have to sell yourself with the things that you know. And you also, if you're graduating in May and you want to just break in there, whatever job you can get starting off would at least get you the door open. And you build those contacts and you build that networking base. And wherever you work, be nice to whoever you work with. Because I'll give you an example. I was out in the field, and our competition is technically New York One and Files, because we're cable stations. So yes, we do compete with the big stations, but we're no competition. Sorry if my bosses are saying this, but it's true. And so there was a girl working at New York One, and I have to shoot my own stuff. So it's pretty hard because I basically have to get the mic, put it like this, focus on the mic, like zoom on the mic, focus the mic, zoom out, step in the exact spot where I'm holding this mic, and record myself. So sometimes that takes a very long time because you have to make sure that you're seeing and the lighting and everything. And this girl saw me from New York One, and she's like, "Oh, are you struggling?" She's like, let me do this for you. And later on, I found out that New York One works in a 6 months probation type of thing. So you'll work for them for 6 months, and then after that, you're kind of done if they don't have any full-time openings. And she got my number. I gave her my card, and she was very nice. And we built that rapport because she was nice enough to do that for me. She didn't have to do that. She's now out of a job, looking for a job, and she just got an interview at News 12 as a producer because I recommended her. So always be nice to people, even if they're your competition. There's no such thing in this business. You are, yeah, because you're in the tough situations by yourself. You're gonna be in a murder scene. You're gonna have a family screaming at you, "Why are you here? Why are you knocking on my door? My family member just died." You're gonna be at fires and people just lost everything that they own. You're gonna be at perp walks, perp walks basically someone committed a crime and you're waiting for them to come out, and then you have to try to shout questions at them hoping they could answer, so you get that quick soundbite of, "I didn't do it, I didn't mean to do it." So it gets very boring and gets very hard, and especially if you're working winters in the snow coverage, it's miserable. So it's always nice to be nice to your competition, and they could help you. And I've seen that story play out with many of my colleagues. One of my colleagues got her job now because of someone out in the field that recommended her to her news director, and she's now working in Fox News, Fox 5. So she did a huge jump that some people won't do. I would say also look at cable stations. People discourage, cable stations. You get paid a lot less. That part sucks, but it's the way to work in the bigger markets or close to home for those of you that don't want to leave, and still be here. If you want to be on camera, a lot of people, the easiest way to do it is once you have your reel, get out there, send emails to news directors, and try to go to the smaller markets. I could tell you guys of a website. If you just search on Google TV news markets, you'll have the index. It's the Nielsen. Nielsen is what does the ratings. And just search the Nielsen index of TV news stations. It will give you the ratings from 100 to 200. the 200s and up being the smallest stations. Those are the easiest stations to get into the business. You know, you'll have, if you want to stay in New York, Elmira, Binghamton, Syracuse, those are the places to kind of send your resume. And don't be afraid of like using LinkedIn. Like I link in a lot to total strangers. I'm just like, hi, you know, you work in this market. How did you get there? How are you doing? And I kind of internet stalk a lot of people. I actually wonder, like I was Googling myself the other day and I was wondering, do people stalk me like I stalk them? Because I have a few people that I stalk because they have the similar look as me. I don't kind of fit the mold in the way that I'm not very petite, like a lot of girls are in TV, and I'm Hispanic. So there's a couple girls that are a little bit more voluptuous and Hispanic in other markets. So I kind of follow them because whatever their next move is likely a good move for me. Or if their job opens, it might be a good job for me if they're because they want to kind of fill that demographic. So LinkedIn is definitely great. YouTube, if you guys YouTube reporter reels, don't YouTube Aime Rodriguez reporter reel, you'll see me. But YouTube reporter reels, there's so many from so many people, and you kind of will see how your reel should look like when you're starting off. And everyone, if you want to go into TV, they're going to ask you for a reel, whether it's reporting or anchoring. They want to see your writing, they want to see your style, and they want to see your personality. With doing this class, what I will say, just by watching you, I know it was your first time, and I think you did great for a first time. My first time was awful. But your name is the most important thing. That's what you want people to remember. So I don't know if any of you guys watch news, but you should be watching news. Everyone has your name is just so important. Like, so if you watch WABC, Carolina Lead, she just like says her name like no one else can say it. So that is your opportunity to showcase yourself. This is me. You should be paying attention to me. So I would always say emphasize that. My biggest problem when I started is that it's really hard to keep your breath. So you tend to rush because you want to get it over with. When you do that, the viewer knows that you're doing that. So if you're rushing, it's like, okay, well, why? Where are you going? Like, where are you going? You're there to stay. You have your minute 20. You have to do this. So just take your time with it. Don't get frustrated if you stumble. Just keep doing it. And your name really is the most important part. And just consistency all along. Don't rush. That's what I would say, you know, when anchoring. And, you know, tracking and voiceovers are really hard. It's something that I had a little bit of an ease. My news director told me, you know, for a beginner, you do this really good. Other people really struggle, and just try not to read. That's what I would say. You don't want it to sound. I know the first time I ever tracked, my assistant news director looked at me and he said, "You sound like you're from Harvard or Yale, or you're just trying to read me a bedtime story. This isn't you. I want your personality to show." And I told him, well, I'm just trying to be conscious of enunciating perfectly because I was a little bit of self-conscious because I have a bit of an accent, or at least, you know, moving from Miami to New York, everyone always asks me, where are you from? You have an accent. I said, well, I sound like everyone in Miami. I don't know why people say I have an accent. But my assistant news director told me, no, I like your accent. This is what makes you you. This is your personality. You have to sound like yourself. You just have to sound like a little bit of an animated version of yourself. I know I have a lot of my guy friends in the business watch wrestling. It's like a thing like WWE. So if any of you guys have ever heard of WWE or wrestling, they say for wrestlers, you're an exaggerated version of yourself. That's kind of what you are on camera. You could be having your worst day. It could be really, really cold. The sun could be in your face because you obviously, one of the tricks in the business is always put your palm where the sun is. If your palm is dark, you don't want the camera to be facing this way because that's your face is going to be dark. So you want to face where the palm is light, where the light is coming to your palm. So you have to face the sun. And basically, and I'll show you guys, I have like a funny blooper reel that I did recently. And it didn't air, but I edited it myself. And I'm like this the whole time. I'm like, I just can't do this. The sun's in my face. So you just have to close your eyes and just stay there, and then 3, 2, 1, and open your eyes, and the personality has to, you know, as soon, it's like lights, camera, action. You're a totally different person. Because you have to kind of entertain, even if it's a bad story. Obviously, in a respectful way, if someone died, you're not going to have a smile on your face. But you also don't want to look like you're mad all the time. And that's even something I'm working on. My friends tell me, well, you look pissed, stop. You have chronic BITCH face, stop it. But it comes with time, and you'll all learn. But yeah, that would be my advice. Definitely, smaller markets are the way to go. Contacts, LinkedIn, stock people. Once you look at those markets that you kind of fit your mold, I would say go to those websites of those TV stations. So let's say if you think Myrtle Beach is a good place for you, you will search Myrtle Beach News. You'll find Fox, ABC, X, Y, and Z. Go on those websites. Go into news teams. See their news team. See where the people that they've hired have come from. If you see that they only have, you know, a year in the business and that's their first place, because there's bios there. You could read their bios. So you could say, oh, they can hire me. If they hired her, why can't they hire me? So that's the best case scenario. But if you are still trying to figure it out, local stations, try to, you know, be a producer, try to do anything. I had another friend of mine, she's in Elmira now, her contract's up, she's looking for places to go. She started as a desk assistant in WABC, New York. So she knows all of those great people that we all see and have kind of, for those of you that grew up in New York, grew up seeing. And those people were great contacts for her and helped her. And those are references. And if you have references from people like that, that's gold. And you never know. You make your 3 years in Elmira and you're this amazing reporter, that could be your chance back in New York. So even if you start off, you know, not on camera, off of the behind the scenes, you could, don't be discouraged, because it's very easy to get discouraged. There was a point that I got discouraged, and it wasn't until I was absolutely miserable that I said, you know what, I have to do it. It's a time to do it. You know, don't wait till you're married or like have kids or need to rely on a job to do it. And if you are, just make it work. Because I know people that have totally reinvented their careers. I know another one of my colleagues just started doing the on-camera thing, and she was working in business journalism in NBC behind the cameras, not doing anything. And then one day she woke up and she said, I'm going to be a reporter today. She's starting over. So it's never too late. You could always do it. Any other questions? Go ahead.
I actually had 2 questions. Earlier we were talking about how, you know, fitting the mold is sometimes required, like you had to cut your hair, and just how you feel as being of a minority, how, like, you know, some African American females have to wear their hair straight or, you know, do certain things to fit the mold. How do you feel about that aspect, like still maintaining your personality, but, you know, conforming, because it is a job? And then I'll let you answer that first question first.
Yeah, so for me, that's been tough. I have heard people tell me, like, you should probably hit the gym. You know, I like to eat. I like a burger. I like to drink beer. So, but at the same time, I know that it's part of the business and it's very vain. So I try, you know, it's all about how you dress yourself. You know, if I feel like my arms are a little bit heavier, like I'll wear, you know, this. Because the camera does add 10 pounds. It sucks. It does add pounds. So you kind of have to fit it in that way. I do think as far as minorities, things are changing in a good direction. Unfortunately, not as fast as they should. I do have a lot of African American girlfriends, and they're all natural, but not on camera. And I know it's very frustrating for them. I know that they wear like the half wigs. They do it a lot. A lot of them just like, you know what, I'm just gonna wear wigs because my hair is gonna fall off. Your hair always has to look perfect and straight. But it has, I mean, there have been reporters that have gone on air naturally. I know that recently my news director asked one of our meteorologists that is natural if she wanted to try it and do it. And I think it was more of like her also, you have to be comfortable with doing that because you don't know how it's going to look on camera. So I think she's still working on whether she's not deciding whether or not she's going to do it. But the fact that the news director decided to say like, hey, do you want to try it? That means the world, because a lot of news directors wouldn't do that. But I think it is changing in a good direction. But unfortunately, listen, it's part of the business. You have to do it. I would rather have long hair, and I had to cut it. And it was like, oh, maybe you should get some highlights. And it's like, okay, well, are you gonna pay for it? Because it's money. But you have to do it. You know why? Because I'm freelancing now, and I want a full-time job. So in order for me to do that, I have to play by the rules. And the other thing is that you will find whatever job you do anywhere in the business. I know people that graduated with me worked at ended up doing NBC Sports, or I know other people that are doing HBO boxing and everything. Most of them are freelance. So I live by my phone. On the way here, my assistant news director was texting me, can you work, are you available to work Monday, Tuesday? I have more days for you in a little bit. And like I peeked at my phone while I was driving. I was like, I shouldn't, but I have to because it's kind of first come, first serve. So I said yes. I kind of have it programmed. Why yes? And I always try to say yes, and I'm always available for them because I want to get hired. And there's a pool of like 6 other people that are going to try to work just as hard as me, that are just as talented as me, and they're also trying to get full-time jobs. So try to always say yes, try to always be available. It can be very discouraging. I'm not going to lie to you, there's less talented people than me in the business that are beautiful, supermodel looking, and they're doing great. And it's been very easy for them to have a job. And I just kind of roll my eyes, and it's like, you can't even write a package. Mm-hmm. But one of the things that I heard, and it's very true, the laziest people and the dumbest people can get far. Don't let it affect you. Other people's successes are not your failure. And that's what I had to learn the hard way, because it's very easy to get discouraged. And you never know. You'll get your chance, kind of thing. What's your next question?
My next question is, how, as someone like, I'm from Oklahoma, I'm from a small town, so resume is not stacked. And I know, like, starting out, when you're looking for internships, the resume is everything. They're looking for something. So what did you put on your resume, and what did you have on your resume, so to speak, when you were applying for these internships, so that, internships build your resume? So what did you have on there that set you apart and kind of got you where you need to be?
You know what, that's a good question, because I don't remember that far.
Because, like, I do fashion, and, like, because I come from Oklahoma, there's only a certain amount of things that I've done. And so coming here, where people have already worked with higher-end people, mm-hmm. or worked with certain people, it's very discouraging. And I'm just trying to figure out what I would like to do, or what I need to do in order for me to build that resume, so that when I do go, for these bigger internships, that they see that I have the experience, but I'm still trying to learn.
I think my advice in that scenario is the following. If you're going on for an internship, don't overthink it, because they're not paying you.
Right. So
they don't technically care how qualified you are. They just care how hard you want it, how much you want it, and how hard you're willing to work for it. So you could have the best references and experience in your resume, but if you show up and you are not knowledgeable and you don't know what you're saying, or you have a bad attitude, you're not going to get the internship anyway. In my first internship, it was in Univision. I thought I prepared, I knew Univision, I watched it growing up, like Don Francisco, everything, like what could they ask me that I didn't know? And I sat down, and this producer gives me like this little test. And I look at it, and I'm just like, what is this? And mind you, I'm from Miami. I've only been living in New York probably, because I did 2 years in Miami and then I transferred over here. So I had only been in New York 6 months. And Univision is based out of New Jersey. So it asked me in this little paper, name the governor of New York New Jersey. The mayor of New York City, New Jersey, or Union, whatever it is. All these different things. You're at least 3 assemblymen, Congress. What are the top 3 issues affecting New York City and New Jersey? I had no idea. So I'm just like, Bloomberg? I didn't know anything about Chris Christie. I didn't know anything about Cuomo. I didn't know anything. Chuck Schumer, who? So I think that is a big, I was going into TV news. I should have known that. They gave me the internship anyway because I must have sold something else. But she told me, she's like, just so you know, if you want to be in this business, these are things you have to know. You have to watch news. You have to know what's going on in your backyard. So on my days off, I watch Bronx, Brooklyn news. I have Long Island news. I have Twitter alerts. I, try to watch every single type of news and other competitions to see what other people are doing. You have to be well informed. So if you want to go into fashion and that's your thing, know your designers. I can't tell Jimmy Choo apart from, Shoe in the Box or whatever. I'm not a fashion person. I'm not a fashionista. I just learned what Tahari was the other day. Another hard part about this business, you have to look good. And for me, it's just like I buy clothes at Target. So now I'm like trying to dress a little better. So if you're into fashion, know fashion. Know your beat. Your beat is whatever you're going to be reporting. So I'm on the local beat because I do Bronx and Brooklyn. But you could be on a political beat. And if you're on political beat, know every single council person, from the bottom to the top. So just know, I think that would be a great asset for you. And if you feel like, as far as listing it, list whatever jobs you have done, or classes that you've taken, or things that you're knowledgeable in. Blogging is something that's also really big if you're into fashion. I mean, there's huge blogging competition. Everyone's about Instagram, Twitter, selling themselves in a different way. So maybe if you start a blog, you could say, this is my blog, this is my work, and they could see that. That could be your reference. So that would work. But just definitely know your market. And follow up with them, because you may apply and it's going to get lost. Don't be scared to send an email and say, hey, I'm so-and-so, I send you an email. You have my resume, I'm just following up. If this doesn't work out, maybe we could do it next semester, whatnot. I would say that.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I currently intern at a newspaper, a small local newspaper, but I want to when I'm done with school and stuff, I would want to do camera work. With your experience in the industry, is there a lot of crossover between people that do writing and people that end up on TV or even just radio?
Radio is a lot of back and forth. I know a lot of people that started in radio that are now in TV, or vice versa. A lot of people that I know work at WCBS and, on weekends, and then they get a couple gigs on TV. It's good to do both. The good thing about radio is that the voice of radio, I mean, I listen to 1010 Wins all the time, also while I'm driving, just to know what's going on. And I listen to them all the time, and their voiceovers are just flawless. And I see them out in the field. They're doing that on their cell phones while there's craziness going on in front of them. And it sounds flawless on the radio. You don't hear panic, you don't hear anything. So I think having that and then going on camera will translate beautifully. What people in just the journalism paper have more of a trouble with is that TV writing is very conversational, and newspaper is not, is more detailed. And I actually had this experience because News 12 Long Island and Newsday is a local Long Island paper. They share stories, and they actually have some paper reporters that do stories for TV news. And the news director has to go in there, look at their script, and say, no, it's going to be 6 minutes long. You can't do 6 minutes. The audience, you're going to lose the audience in one. So they have to go in and start cutting things off. And some stories don't translate well on TV. There's just something so beautiful to me. I love newspaper. My dream growing up was to work in Miami Herald, because that's what I grew up reading. And I remember people telling me they're going to be out of business. Don't do that. Now with the internet is a lot better, so I wouldn't say, if you want to do newspaper, that definitely you could do it, because I think it's not going to die, in my opinion, because you have the internet portion of it. You could definitely do both, but just know that they're both very different. In the sense that you're getting interviews and you're telling stories, that's all the same. Your news judgment's always going to be the same. And you're only as good as your news judgment. Just know what's a story and what's not. And what story's good and what story's not. And your integrity, what you're willing to put out there and how hard you're willing to work. You could definitely do both, but they're both different. That would be my answer. Anything else? Anybody else?
Can I ask you a question about social media? Because you were on, I follow you on Instagram.
I'm on everything.
You're on everything. So how does is that like expected of you? Is this something that you do on your own initiative? How does that work?
So actually, when you're full-time, that is expected of you. There's actually they have a tracking system, and every day everyone gets an email. What are the top social media hits everywhere? Before I even got a full-time job, while I was in school, and if you scroll down on my Instagram, it's Aime Rod News. If you scroll all the way down, you'll see that I have stuff that I did while I was in Pace. I remember there was one of the hurricanes. It wasn't Sandy, it was the one before Sandy. I went out and I started taking pictures of plants and trees that had fallen, and I lived in White Plains at the time, and I said, damage in White Plains after hurricane. And all of those things are back there. I've always been passionate about social media. It's something I took very seriously from Pace. I learned it, and I put myself out there. But when you do work full time, you are expected to tweet. And the older generation of reporters are having a hard time with it. I know that there's some reporters that ask me, how do you do this? Like, how should I put this? But everyone has a Facebook account. Like a personality Facebook account. Mine is pretty new. I always had Facebook, but I didn't have a Facebook personality because I felt like it was weird. For me, it was like being a personality was just like too much. I didn't want to be like vain like that, but it's part of the business. But I tweet every single story I do, and I try to get as much followers by hashtagging and everything, because now wherever I go, a news director is going to see that. They do ask you, how many followers do you have? How many people are following you on social media? Because that's audience that you're bringing to them. You're going to tell people, watch me at 5 o'clock, so they're going to tune in, and that's viewers that they're getting because of me, because they want to see me. So in that scenario, one of my brother's news director is in Miami, and she's one of the top head news directors in the business. My news director actually knows of her. And he told me that they were having a conversation, and he mentioned, I have to get some days off. I'm going to my sister's wedding in September because I'm getting married in September. I didn't know your sister lived in New York. What does she do? She's an MMJ. Why did she go into this business? And she started going into this whole conversation about why he had let me go into this business since I'm younger, that this is a dying business and all this stuff. And she said, well, now that she's in this business and you haven't given her any advice, I'll give her some advice. Tell her this from me. She is only as good as what she's going to bring to our news station. So tell her that she is not who she works for. She is herself. You have to sell yourself. So her advice was she needs to know how to do everything, and she needs to be on social media, because they look at that. Now they're looking at a different scenario. They have a lot of older anchors, and this is market 17 in the whole United States. And she's now hiring younger blood, and how she's hiring younger blood is by looking at that, how many followers they have, how active they are on social media. If you don't follow if you're local, like you're from Oklahoma, if you like your local news stations and if you at some point want to go back home, otherwise it's fine, follow your local news stations. I mean, I follow my local news stations from Miami because at some point, if my life takes me there, I would like to go back home. Otherwise, I'll go somewhere else. But I also follow all of the, like on Facebook, all the local stations from New York. And if you notice that, something very interesting has happened in the past month. WCBS, Fox, ABC, all live stream on Facebook. That's brand new. And the reason that they're doing that is because sweeps just happened. And for those of you that, does everybody know what sweeps is? So sweeps is everything. Sweeps is going to be your worst nightmare because if you work on camera or even if you work as a producer, you can't take vacation during sweeps. Sweeps is the times that the Nielsen system, which is Nielsen is what does the ratings of who's watching you. I don't know why it's called sweeps. Maybe I should Google it. I should probably know this. But that's when the Nielsen system is running, and that's where the grading system comes in. So they'll run the boxes, the cable boxes, and see who's watching what station. And that was, I guess, their way of trying to bring new audiences during the sweeps by reminding people, if you like a station or you like anybody on Facebook, you get an alert on your app that they're live, so you could tune in. So if they're live at 9:50 and they're telling you, coming up at 10, we're gonna have all these cool stories, and I'm watching Netflix at that time and I get my alert, I'm gonna say, oh yeah, news is on. I forgot all about news. I was watching Orange is the New Black. Let me turn on WCBS or WABC. That's their new way of trying to get the newer generation, because not a lot of people are watching TV anymore. People have Hulu, people have Netflix, people have Amazon. So that's kind of the future. So if you're not on social media, get on social media, but be very careful with your social media and what you put out there, because it could break your career. It could make and break your career. If you say the wrong thing, you always have to be extra politically correct. And it sucks that you can't say what you want, but at the end of the day, you can't have an opinion because you have to be balanced, you have to be fair. So I'm obviously, you know, if I'm ethical, I'm not gonna go on social media and put, you know, Trump sucks or Ted Cruz sucks or whatever, because I don't, you know, if I report on Donald Trump coming to New York, then I'm gonna sound to my audience like I'm not a fan of his, because I already put that on social media. So be careful what you put, and even with what you have out there, I recently changed. Everybody tells me, my mom, she's like, how many Instagrams and how many Facebooks do you have? I can't keep track. I have my personal Instagram and I have my work one, and I have to log on back and forth, and I have I have actually two Facebooks, two personal Facebooks. One is, you know, from all the people that I've met throughout the years, because you find that, for example, like I have Liskay on my Facebook. I have colleagues from mine that maybe I'm not that big of a fan of my colleagues, but I want to have them on my Facebook because they requested me. I'm not going to say no, because then it's just awkward if I see them again. Like, hey, why don't you accept my Facebook request? It's a thing now that we all have to deal with. So I have that Facebook, and then I have my very, very personal Facebook that if I want to put, oh my gosh, I love my fiance so much, I'll do that there and not bother like everybody else that I have. And so I use like my very professional networking Facebook, and then if I want to put pictures of, you know, my food and my dogs or whatever, or my engagement photos, I'll put that in my personal Facebook. For my very small groups of friends, it's probably 20 people and nothing else, just like my family, abuela, tío, whatever it is, and not worry about everybody else. Because when you have a Facebook this is something that I learned. We were talking with Pulaski's class, and she told us that she's like, when you guys have Facebooks and it's 1,000 people, I have 998 people in my personal Facebook. Those people are people that I know from high school. They don't need to know my business. And when you're on camera, you never know who's gonna turn that around and hurt you. So you have to be very careful. So I have two personal Facebooks, my professional Facebook, and then I have two Instagrams, one personal, one professional, and then I have one Twitter. I only use Twitter for the business. I don't need to tweet my opinion. I'm not Kim Kardashian or Kanye West. No one cares what I'm saying. So.
Any other kinds of social media though?
I do have LinkedIn, Vine. Vine is huge now too. So what I do is sometimes I just kind of Vine what is going on outside, and then I'll use my Vine and like tweet my Vine, because Twitter and Vine are connected. I have Yelp, but I just use it because I like food. I also have a page, like a website. It's not up yet, but I build my page to hopefully when I have time and put it up, I'll be able to use that in my resume and direct people to my www.aimerodriguez.com, so they could see, you know, all my work there. And then I also have YouTube. I have my YouTube channel, just basically has my reels. So just a copy of my best work. And yeah, and with your reel, you just make sure that whenever you do your reel, it's your best stuff and it shows your personality. That's really what people care. And just make sure that whatever you do, and I see you guys are writing your own stuff, which is great. I know people that have taken, for example, they'll do an internship with me, and they will say, okay, I'll just do what you do. And I always tell them, no, you want to do it in your own words, because you will go to an internship, not to an interview, and they'll ask you, did you write this? Because they want to see your writing style. They want to see how you're going to write a package for them. So you don't want to take someone else's, words and say, yes, that's me, because if you can't even pronounce that word, and then you go and say, well, this was your work, it's obviously not. You don't want to mislead them. And you also may not be the right fit. Also, don't be someone that you're not. I know that I have friends that have gone into anchor tryouts. You do have to do tryouts for them. And they've watched the station, and they said, okay, this is how they do things, so I'm going to try to do it that way. And they've kind of psyched themselves out. And know that whoever's hiring you saw your reel, saw your resume, and they got you for a reason. That something had to stick out in your personality that said, you know what, we like her. So just make sure to be yourself, because that's who they saw on YouTube or on Vimeo that made them want to hire you. So, come on, guys. I have nowhere else to be.
Can you walk me through what the process is like? I mean, we've been doing voice work, and we're just now starting to get into video. So can you walk through what the process is like if you get that call saying, we want you to do this thing on Monday night? Like, from start to finish, what do you do?
Well, most of the places, wherever they hire you, they're going to train you for at least a week in a good place. I mean, I've never heard of someone just all of a sudden, like, you're hired, go on camera. They want to make sure they give you the tools not to fail. No one's going to want to see you fail, because it's their product too. So they want you to be the best personality for them on TV. So they will train you for at least a week. And then after that, you're kind of on your own. So make sure that during that week where you're trained, ask questions, write notes. And I find that the more you do things, the better you get at them. So if after someone does it and shows you, it depends on who's teaching you too. If someone's just showing you something, it's like this, it's like that, you press this button, you white balance here, and don't be afraid to say, okay, do you mind if I do it? And let me just do it once and you tell me if I'm doing it right or not. Because when you're using equipment or even if you're anchoring and you're running your own prompter, that happens a lot. I could tell you guys a little bit about that. You're going to want to do it yourself because it's muscle memory. So you're going to want to try to remember. So another thing is that a lot of anchors now are using self-prompters. So they use their own prompters. So it's not, obviously you guys have the iPad and it kind of times it out. But back in the day, what it used to be is there was like this nobody cares getting paid $5 an hour or whatever person behind the scenes that would run your prompter. And if God forbid, that person, sped up or something, it would mess you up and they would be fired because, you know, the anchors, you don't want to piss off your anchor. It's not like that anymore because, like I said, they're cutting jobs everywhere. So you run your own prompter. So you have this little wheel. It's almost like a little turning wheel. And while you're reading, not only do you have to read, you have to look good, you have to enunciate, you have to have your personality, and you have to try not to stumble over your words, but you have to run this little gadget. It could be a good thing, it could be a bad thing. There are also, a lot of people are using iPads now too, not for the prompting, but for scripts. You always have backup scripts in case your prompter goes off, and in case there's technical issues that you could read down and look up. Back then, it used to be paper form. They're saving paper now because they don't want to kill trees, and also if they go green, it helps the company, it makes the company feel better. So a lot of people are using iPads instead of, or computers. If you watch Pix 11, they have computers, they don't have scripts. So that's the other thing. Things keep changing in that perspective. So for me, when I started, I was trained, News 12, the Bronx has what they call the Academy. It sounds really fancy, it's not. It's 3 weeks training all on your own. They train you for a week and then they just send you out to do VOSATs. Does everybody know what VOSATs are? So VOSATs are VO. These are keywords, you're gonna hear them all the time, whatever you do. VO is voice over, or video over tape, I think. It's basically a VO is a video and the anchor or anyone is talking over it. So it's just VO. SOTs are sound over tape. So it's someone that's speaking. So that's your sound bite. That's that person. Oh my God, I can't believe it. Or he was such a good guy. I can't believe he did that. I can't believe he was in jail. He always seemed like a perfect neighbor. So it's always that sound bite is your SOT. You put them together, it's a VOSAT. So what those VOSATs are you put a bunch of voice, a bunch of video, and then you put your SOT. You edit this yourself. They put it up for the anchor. The anchor is reading over that tape. That's why it's like voiceover. The anchor is reading over that tape, and that's when you're saying, you know, so-and-so collision on East 184th and Roncamp Street. We talked to neighbors about the accident, and then you go into your SOT. So I was sent to go and do all these things. I had to get, one day I had to get 4 of them. So it's 4 different stories, and I have to shoot all this by myself, get the sound, leave, go to the next one, shoot, get the sound. So I did that for about a week, and then they said, okay, now you're ready to do packages. So your packages are, that's the part where you're in. That's kind of the fun part. You get to do 1, sometimes 2. So you go into the story, you shoot all your video yourself, you shoot all your interviews, and then you get to write it. So you write it in a way that basically you condense it into 1:20. And you have to do your stand-up with yourself with the mic. That is the hardest part, and I'll tell you why. You're interviewing someone, you're shooting all this video, and before you write the story, you have to think about what you're gonna say on camera, because you have to do that stand-up right then and there. You can't do that stand-up after you go to the office, after you see all the video you have, and after you hear all your interviews, and then write your story and then say, oh, this is what I wanna say, this sounds great. No. So you have to try to find a way to do your stand-up and make it fit into your story. And at the beginning, it could be really, really awkward, because I remember I did a stand-up and I said, what was my first story? It was about a police officer that had died in 9/11, and they were doing a sign, a street sign for him, street sign unveiling. There's so many stories like that. So I said something like, oh, family and friends gathered here today to remember Officer Vincent, blah, 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 and all the great things he did. Went back to the office. That had nothing to do with what I wanted to say. I wanted to say that in the beginning, not in the end or not in the middle. So you have to learn how to do that. So if you ever, it comes with practice, but my suggestion is you always try to piece 2 thoughts together. So if you interview 2 people and you tell me I want to be a fashion designer and this is what I want to do. And then he tells me I'm going to be, I want to work in newspaper and also maybe in radio, and how easy is that transition? Then I would say, although some PACE students are really interested in fashion, other PACE students are looking into other opportunities in newspaper. So it will go from her soundbite to his soundbite. I'm in the middle, and it makes sense because I'm piecing that story together. So whenever you're trying to put two stories that kind of don't make sense, two soundbites that don't make sense, you can use yourself. The other easy way to do it is just use yourself in the end and just wrap the story together. So if I'm doing a story about my experience here, I would just wrap it up saying, all the anchoring students are, hopeful that this experience will help them they hope this will give them the tools to get them, on the next step to their future career. Reporting from whatever, Aime Rodriguez, News 12, wherever I'm working that day. That's another part that's hard. Where am I? Know where you are, because I know sometimes I have to ask random people on the street, what part of the Bronx is this? Because you have to say, reporting from, if I'm in Soundview, the Soundview, or the Throgs next section, or wherever. If I'm in Brooklyn, am I in Canarsie? Am I in Bed-Stuy? So know where you are. It's kind of hard. I use this app. It's called What Neighborhood Am I In? And that sometimes helps me. I have to, what neighborhood am I in, everything. And then I ask my producers, because for some reason we have different names for different neighborhoods, or if I'm 2 streets off to my producer, I may be somewhere else. So I remember one day I did a live shot and I said I was in the South Bronx, and then they called me and they're like, okay, yeah, you technically are in the South Bronx, but we want you to say you're in blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, okay. So the next time I went live, I had to remember, okay, I can't say I'm in the South Bronx. I can't say I'm in the South Bronx. So that does happen. Know your neighborhood, know your people, and know what issues affect your audience, and if you're going on an internship and you research who you may meet, it's so easy with Google. Like, you guys could probably Google me and find out my whole life. So, Google who you're trying to work for, because you may find I was actually talking to a PR person yesterday, another thing, everybody knows everybody in this business. So I was at a book signing yesterday for a friend of ours, and I met this guy that works at one of the top public relations in Long Island that I always talk to on the phone, but I've never met face to face. So we were kind of exchanging notes, and if any of you guys are looking to go into PR, it's a good thing to know. He tells me, he's like, sometimes it's really bad, but I'll try to Google whoever I'm gonna call to see if we have a similar, a shared interest, because that's what builds a rapport, and that's what builds our relationship with them, and they'll remember you. So, and it does work. I had someone that told me, I went to this really good Cuban restaurant and blah, blah, and I said, where? Because I'm Cuban, and there's not that many Cuban restaurants in Long Island. So I was like, oh my God, where? And we had a whole conversation. So every time I talk to this person, I always ask her, she's kind of a foodie. So I said, okay, what are the top restaurants? What have you gone to next? So even if you do that, that helps with PR people. You have to deal with PR people a lot in this business. So as much as they do it, we can do it too, because sometimes we need them, especially like police. It's really, your police sources are the best things that you can have, whatever market you work in, because they're the ones giving you the information. So all the time when you say sources say, you're only as good as your sources. That's the other thing. So you want to make sure that your sources are pretty good and that you try to warm up to them. So when you're looking for a job, if you Google this person and, they may be from the same town you're from, and you might not know, and that may make them attracted to you. Or they could, be a PACE alum. My news director she's from Montclair, and a friend of mine just interviewed for us to be an anchor, and she's from Montclair too. So I told her, I was like, sell that you're from Montclair, because she'll like that. And afterwards I spoke to her and I asked her how the interview went, and she's like, oh my God, we spoke about Montclair for like half an hour. And then the meteorologist happened to be from Montclair too, and she introduced herself, and that came up, And the meteorologist went inside of the office where they were holding this interview, and he told her, "Oh, you need to hire her. She's from Montclair." So already she's building relationships with people that she may be working with if she gets the job. So always don't be scared to stalk people. I will say my first year doing a production class with Deraria, this fancy place was not here. We were downstairs and in the basketball gym. And he asked us, why do you want to do this? Why are you in this class? And he made us all, in our introduction, say why we wanted to do this. One of the girls, one of her things, and it stuck with me, one of my my co-students, whatever, she said, "Oh, I want to be famous." And I kind of rolled my eyes, and I was like, okay, whatever, she wants to be famous. She did a YouTube video that got retweeted by Kim Kardashian. That's as famous as she's ever gotten. And she's not in the business. I think she's not working. I don't think she even finished the program, the bachelor's program. I think she just went back home because of family issues. But my point to the story is, if you want to be famous, or if you just want your face on TV, or if you want to make a lot of money, it's not the business for you, because you're not going to make a lot of money. Whether you're working at a cable station like I am, or a small station in Iowa, it's most starting salaries for on camera are below $30,000, if that. So it could be a struggle. Yeah.
Were you worried that after coming out of college you wanted to have a job?
So I actually, while working in college, just because coming from very low, medium income family, and I'm an immigrant. I was born in Cuba. So the fact that I came to New York by myself without my family and tried to make ends meet, I needed to work while being in school. So I worked at Best Buy while being in school, just to kind of pay, where I was living and everything. I didn't dorm because there was no way I would be able to afford it. So I was worried, definitely. I left my Best Buy job, and I remember calling my mom and said, I have to do an internship. I may need a little bit of help, and luckily my parents were able to help me a little bit for a while, so I did my first internship. And I remember my Best Buy person, my manager, telling me, are you, I'm scared that you're gonna leave, because how are you gonna make ends meet doing this internship? I did it, took a leap of faith. Luckily, my Westchester internship led to my job, but not right away. I worked at a PR firm for pharmaceuticals for about 8 months right out of college. And it was something I found on Craigslist. It was kind of sketchy. I was just making phone calls to, I didn't even get to work in the cool PR part, and I was not making pharmaceutical money by all means. I was calling people like a telemarketer, do you want to try, Xanax or whatever that prescription was? And I had to read the list of side effects. The cool thing is that whatever you do is what you make it. I turned that into the best script I've ever read in my life. So I was in that scenario, I was practicing my voiceovers. And maybe that's why when I started my first news job, my news director was saying, wow, your voice and your tracks sound much better than people that are green. Because I did whatever experience I was. Was I afraid? Yes. I thought I was never going to make it into the news business. I remember I had to do a reel. That's what I figured out. People kept asking me, you need a reel to go and, people would call me back, but they would say, well, if you want to do TV, where's your reel? So I didn't have a reel coming out of Pace. Looking back, I could have had a reel. I could have checked out a camera, gone out, by the 9/11 memorial and just said, we're gathered, Pace students gathered here today to remember those fallen. Bam, that's a stand-up. I could have gone to a basketball game and said the score was blah, 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 or I could have maybe done a package about the fact that parking is such an issue in the campus. So I could have done a reel in school. I just didn't know. I didn't have anyone to tell me. Because at the time, our program was not that TV driven, and I just had no clue what the hell I was doing. So I was fortunate enough that my brother works in TV, and he lived in Dallas at the time, and he told me, you know, come over here and we'll try to help. So I flew to Dallas, and one of his colleagues shot a couple things for me, and I tracked his packages, his stuff that he had already done. And that's why I say I wouldn't advise anybody to do that, because I didn't sound like myself. He did it for me. It was a rush job that didn't end up being my first TV job. That ended up being, it got me in the business because I did show it, and then they told me, well, you know, you could do TV, but you still need work, but I can guarantee you a full-time job in the assignment desk. And I took the full-time job. So it's hard, but I would say my advice is if you guys do want to go on camera, check out those cameras. Look at the YouTube videos online, and whatever they do, even if it's college reel, you know, people put college reel from their college days, and watch those. I actually, one of my friends from the grad program, she just went back home to Iowa, and we came back to campus. I was on campus in December with her, and I helped her shoot her reel. We asked for permission to try to do it. And because we have that rapport with our professors, I'm sure Liskay would have told other people, no way, you're not checking out equipment. That's like a liability, whatever. She may not even want people to know that I did that, but you guys, no one knows. But it's just, we did it, and she's trying to get a job now. So now that you guys have the opportunity, now that you guys could check out the equipment, do it now. Take your time off. I know for a fact that you guys could come on weekends or whenever there's off hours that the lab is open. Use that time for yourself, because it's only going to benefit yourself. You're not doing it for anybody else. You're not doing it for a grade. And I know it sucks to take time off, but if you want to do it, and now that you have this green screen, like you want to do fashion, you could easily do your own little fashion show in a green screen and put it on YouTube, and that could be your reel. So it's really what you make it, and don't be afraid to ask, because I'm sure that anybody else that may be a little bit better with camera or production wouldn't mind if it's a friend of yours, do it, because they could say, you know what, I shot it, or I helped her light it, and they put it in their reel. Because everybody has reels, even producers. When producers do their shows, they have to show what shows they produce, so they have their reels up. Photographers put up their work that they've done in order to get jobs. It's all about, unless you're working behind the scenes, and also be prepared to just watch a lot of news and watch what they say, hear what they say, hear their writing, because a lot of times you are asked to do a writing test, and they'll tell you, okay, read this story. Let's say it's a New York Times story, and they'll tell you, write it for news. So you could always practice that yourself. Read a local article on LOHUD. I know that's a Westchester paper, and then just write it for news.
We do some of that in this class.
Yeah.
So
I talk a lot, so tell me
no,
when to
that's all
stop.
right. So basically we end the class at 9, but we didn't take a break. So those of you who want to leave at this point, you're free to go. We already talked about this before, but next week we've got some reading. No recording this week, but write stories. This will be on Blackboard as well. So this is what we've got, but I mean, Amy, if anyone wants to stick around for a few more minutes and still have questions, then we can keep chatting. But
Yeah.
let's give you a round of applause though.
Oh, thank you guys.